all. Welcome back, dear students. Myself, Mrs. Nimfa, your biology lecturer. So, as you all know, we are dealing with division Gymnosperms, right? So, we have completed part 1 and I had left part 2 because this kind of process or this kind of system which I am explaining to you right now is quite complex. Okay, I have made my best to simplify this concept to you all. So, I just request you all to keep your pen paper aside and listen to this topic first and then you can copy it down. Okay, so we'll proceed. So, we had discussed in last class regarding Gymnosperms are Heterosporus, right? So, Heterosporus in the sense means that they consist of different kinds of spores. Okay, hetero word over here refers to different. Okay, they consist of different spores. Okay, different spores, that is male spores and the female spores. Okay, so here male spore is actually called as Microsporus. Okay, and female spore is called as Macrosporus. Okay, remember one thing. Okay, right from bryophytes, pteridophytes to Gymnosperms, we have learned one thing in common, that is micro word refers to the male spores and macro word refers to the female spores. Okay, only one thing is common to other division. The rest all it is unique only with the Gymnosperms. Okay. So here the Microsporus are called as male cones or the male strobili, whereas the Macrosporus is called as female cones or the female strobili. In turn, Microsporus consists of microsporangia, a protective covering for the spores, and microsporophylls, an apex of the leaf area where microsporangia is attached. Is it clear? So, microsporangia and microsporophyll is confined to male gametophyte. Is it clear? So, microsporangia is the protective covering and microsporophyll is present on the leaf apex. Okay, and then these all constituent structures are called as male strobili or male cones. Up to here everything clear, right? So next, coming back to the female spores, we can see that macrosporangia, that is protective covering for the female spores, called as macrosporangia, and these macrosporangia are attached on the apex of a leaf called as macrosporophylls, right? And these all constituents together confine female strobili or female cones. Is it clear? So this thing is very simple and very easy to remember. Okay, so this is the one which you have to remember. So is it clear with this? So that we can move to the next topic. Is it clear? So now coming back to the next part. Okay, in the next part I have told you that the microspores actually are called as male gametophyte. Okay, remember whenever the word gametophyte comes, okay, because in concern to the reproductive structures or reproductive system, we have heard two words. One is sporophyte and other is the gametophyte. Sporophyte is diploid number, that is 2 sets of chromosomes, whereas gametophyte is haploid number, that is only 1 set of chromosome, that is only single N. Okay, so here we see that microspores are male gametophyte, that is they consist of single set of chromosomes. To form single set of chromosome, we must take only one kind of division, that is called as meiosis, because mitosis happens only when the chromosome number is continued to the next generation as it is. Okay, same number of chromosomes, if we have to continue, we can take the example of mitosis. But here this is gametophyte. So what we have to do? We have to reduce the number of chromosomes. So here we can see reduced in the sense means that meiosis takes place. Okay, meiosis occurs over here, that is the number of the chromosomes is reduced and the cells containing the reduced number of chromosomes are called as pollen grains. Is it clear? Okay, so the pollen grains itself are the male gametophyte which you see in case of Gymnosperms. Okay, and these covering called as microsporangia. Okay, and these all structures, microsporangia consisting of the pollen grains in it, are attached on the apex of a leaf, and that particular region where you observe microsporangia is called as microsporophylls. Is it clear? I hope I have made it clear for you to understand. Okay, so this is about male gametophyte, and we have to remember that the male gametes are called as microspores, and this is reduced. Okay, that is the reduced number wherein we see the cells consisting of the reduced number of chromosomes are itself called as pollen grains. Okay, so the male consists of pollen grains, and pollen grains are covered with a protective covering called as microsporangia, and this microsporangia is attached on the apex of a leaf, and that particular region is called as microsporophyll. Is it clear? Okay, so now we can move to the female spores. So while coming back to the female spores, we can see that the female spores itself are called as macrospores. Okay, macro in the sense larger spores we can see. Okay, so what actually happens or how the spores are formed? Okay, there are some particular cells called as nucleus cells. Okay, remember one thing, nucleus are quite different from nucleus. Okay, the spelling is also different. Okay, these are nucleus cells. Okay, it is very easy to remember for you all because you need not have a problem of difficulties to compare it with nucleus cells. These are not at all nucleus cells which you know. Okay, these are actually nucleus cells. Okay, so there are some nucleus cells, and these nucleus cells are protected by an envelope. Okay, this is an envelope which we see. Okay, this is called as protective covering for the nucleus cells, and these are structure. Okay, this protective envelope and the nucleus are together called as ovule. Okay, so remember one thing, ovule is the one structure which is confined to the female gametophyte or the female reproductive structures. Okay, so here there were particular cells called as nucleus cells. Okay, and these nucleus cells were protected by an envelope, and this protective structure with the nucleus itself is called as ovule. Okay, remember one thing that ovule are itself protected further in the macrosporangia, and these are actually called as megasporophylls or the macrosporophyll. Okay, and these are actually attached to the region called as macrosporophyll. Okay, so I hope you can analyze this thing. Okay, there are one cells called as nucleus. They are covered by protective envelope called as, and these particular structure called as ovule. Okay, ovule itself are the reproductive structures of the female gymnosperm trees. Okay, and these actually ovules are attached to a particular region called as macrosporophyll. Okay, after this you can remember. Then how the nucleus further divides we can see. Okay, what happens when the nucleus are covered in an envelope? They feel that we are well protected and we can start the division to form further new cells. Okay, so here you can just imagine this particular thing as a story. Okay, so here these are further specialized cells called as Mmc cells. Okay, Mmc cells means that megaspore mother cells. Okay, in nucleus cells ನೋಡಿರ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಆ nucleus cells division ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Okay, division ಆಗಿ they form Mmc cells. Okay, megaspore mother cells. Megaspore mother cells ಮತ್ತೆ ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ further 4 cells formation ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ. Okay, 4 cells formation ಅಂದ್ರೆ we see meiosis obviously. Okay, meiosis obviously ನಾವು ನೋಡಲೇಬೇಕು ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ mitosis at the end result forms 2 cells. Meiosis is the only thing which forms 4 cells. That's why ಇದೇ nucleus ಇಂದ Mmc cells form ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ ಆ Mmc ಇಂದ 1 Mmc cell give rise to 4 further cells. Okay, so 4 further cells ಆಗಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗ್ತದೆ meiosis ಆಗ್ತದೆ. meiosis ಅಂದ್ರೆ reductional division. reductional division ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ we can say it is a gametophyte, right? So up to here it was sporophyte, and then it forms Mmc cell. Mmc cell further goes to the formation of 4 daughter cells. Here we see that is the gametophyte stage. Okay, so 4 daughter cells inda 1 cell select aagtade. Okay, 4 cells we see that 4 cells inda 1 or 2 cells are selected. Okay, 1 or 2 cells ಏನದ further covering ಏನಿರ್ತದ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ megasporangia. Okay, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿರ್ತದ just envelope covering ಇರ್ತದೆ. Okay, envelope covering further differentiate ಆಗಿ a particular structure called as megasporangia is formed. Okay, so here you can see the same thing. One cell which is selected that is covered with a protective covering called as megasporangia or macrosporangia. So that itself is called as female gametophyte because the number of chromosome is reduced from Mmc cells to 4 different cells. Okay, ಇಲ್ಲಿ what we call those are female gametophyte. Okay, here of which 8 cells reduce ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ 2 or more cells are selected. Okay, selection process ಯಾಕೆ ಆಗ್ತದೆ over here because unhealthy cells ಇರ್ತಾವ, healthy cells ಇರ್ತಾವ. Unhealthy cells na continue ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ that is a waste thing for the plant body. That's why plant body ಏನು ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ healthy cells na selection ಮಾಡ್ತದೆ so that the further progeny is healthy plants. That's why 2 or more cells are selected and that selection process wherein a good healthy cells are selected is called as Archiconia. Archiconia word ನಾವು ಕೇಳಿದ್ವಿ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ bryophytes, pteridophytes. The female spores are called as Archiconia, which are called as female sex organs. Here also we can see the same thing. Okay, nucleus cells in the Mmc cells formation after the Mmc cell further goes for the division of 4 different cells. Here we see chromosome number is reduced. Okay, and that particular reduced number itself is called as female gametophyte, of which 1 cell is selected because 3 polar bodies are formed and 1 cell is selected. 1 cell selection ಇಂದ we further observe 2 or more cells. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ 1 cell ಇಂದ 4 cells ಇರ್ತಾವ. Okay, 1 Mmc cell give 4 cells. If there are 1000 Mmc cells, they give 4000 cells. Okay, 4000 cells ಇಂದ ಮತ್ತೆ ನಾವು selection process ಗೆ ಹೋದ್ವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ we get 1000 cells. ಅದೇ 1000 cells ದಾಗ ನಮಗೆ healthy cells ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ್ದು ಅದಾವ ಅನ್ಕೊಂಡು ನೋಡುತ್ತನ we get 200 to 300 or 400 cells. Okay, adraga those cells which are selected in a healthy region in a healthy way, those are called as Archiconia, and this Archiconia itself is covered with a protective covering called as megasporangia or megaspores or the microsporangia. Okay, and this particular region is attached at the apex of a leaf, and that particular region where megasporangia or microsporangia is attached is called as macrosporophyll. Is it clear? So this is about the female sex organs which you see in case of Gymnosperms. Okay, so now we can see the mode of fertilization, how it occurs in case of Gymnosperms. Okay, so far I guess everything is clear to you. I explained you about pollen grains, how they are formed. I explained about Archiconia cells, how they are formed. Okay, just remember one thing, Archiconia cells in form ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ, those are nothing but those are female sex organs or female reproductive structures. But Archiconia itself can be called as ovule because ovule ಒಳಗನ we can form Archiconia cells. Okay, a particular complex thing you can just remember. And now we can see how fertilization occurs. Now ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ there is one pinus tree which consists of both male and female gametes in it. But there are certain trees also which do not consist of male and female gametes in it. But you can see the location of male plant to one side and female plant to other different location. Aವಾಗ ಹೇಗೆ fertilization ಆಗಬೇಕು? Okay, I'll tell you how fertilization takes place in those plants. Okay, but if the plant that is bisexual plant like pinus, we can see fertilization in a very easy way. But in homosexual plants, that is in case of cycles, how fertilization takes place, that itself is a very complex thing. The pollen grains are covered by a protective covering. Okay, that protective covering is called as microsporangia and it is attached at the apex of a leaf called as microsporophylls. Okay, and then this is about female gametophyte. Okay, that is called as Archiconia. Archiconia cells are present within ovules. Okay, because now we noticed nucleus cells nucleus cells are covered by an envelope, and that particular structure itself is called as ovule. Ovule ಏನಿರ್ತದಲ್ಲ ಅದ್ರ ಒಳಗನ further division ಆಗ್ಕೋತ ಹೋಗ್ತಾವ. Okay, nucleus ಇಂದ mmc ಇಂದ 4 cells ಇಂದ 1 cell identify ಆಗ್ತದ. 1 cell ಇಂದ further we see gametophyte division. Okay, ಅದೇನಾಗ್ತದ Archiconia cells. This is all structure present within ovule itself. Okay, so here we can see that these spores which are formed, those are not at all free living. Okay, free living yakillandra obvious thing, because they are covered by microsporangia and macrosporangia. Okay, that is they remain in sporangia retained on sporophylls. That's why idan gametophyte, that is pollen grain Archiconia form agirtavalla, they are not at all free living. They still need the protective covering, because that protective covering, due to the presence of this protective covering, we see that they are not free living. Okay, and here we can see they remain in sporangia, okay, protective covering, and retained on sporophytes, apex of the leaf. Okay, and then the pollen grains are released. Okay, now we can see there is the time for fertilization. Okay, a good season arrives, a good climatic condition arrives, and then we see the pollen grains are released. That is, this sporangia burst open. Okay, burst ಆಗ್ತದ. ಅವಾಗ ಏನಾಗ್ತದ, pollen grains ಏನೇನು ಒಳಗಿರ್ತದಲ್ಲ ಅದು ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗ್ತಾವ. ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗಿದ ಕೂಡಲೇ obviously one plant is to one destiny and other female plant is to somewhere. So how to do fertilization, how to undergo fertilization? So there is one thing that is common called as the pollen grains are carried to the female plant with the help of air. Okay, air current ಏನಿರ್ತದಲ್ಲ, ಈಗ air pass ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ತದ, ಅವಾಗ pollen grains ಏನೇನು ರಿಲೀಸ್ ಆಗಿರ್ತಾವಲ್ಲ ಅವನ್ನ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಆನ್ ಆಗಿ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಫೀಮೇಲ್ ಪ್ಲಾಂಟ್ ಹತ್ರ ಕ್ಯಾರಿ ಆನ್ ಆಗ್ತದೆ. Okay, female plant ಬಂದಾಗ we know the reproductive structures are Archiconia, that is covered by macrosporangia and it is retained on macrosporophyll. But Archiconia itself is covered under a structure called as ovule. Okay, so in notevi that thing which I have written here, I have simplified this to you in a diagrammatic way. Okay, so this is Archiconia which we see inside. Okay, this Archiconia is covered by a protective covering called as ovule. This in turn consists of macrosporangia and attached on macrosporophyll. Is it clear? Okay, so these are Archiconia. Okay, these are confined into ovule. So now you can imagine one thing, that is pollen grain. Just imagine them as the male candidates who are willing to marry, okay, with the Archiconia. Okay, so now what we do, we see in a marriage that a male is coming on a horse. Okay, there is a barat. Okay, he comes to the gate of the marriage hall. Okay, so ovule, this you can see the opening of the ovule is the gate of the marriage hall. Okay, so here there are certain guards called as macrosporangia. What they do, they understand this is the groom who is willing to marry, so they open the gates of the ovule. So mouth of the ovule is opened and then pollen grains travel through the pollen tube. Okay, there is a passage for the hall which they are entering. Gate open agid kudle one passage irtada and then we can see a marriage hall. Okay, again passage irtadalla, that we can call as the pollen tube, because these all structures are primarily present in case of female gametophyte itself. Okay, because they know one or the other day they have to marry, that's why they are all prepared for the groom to welcome. Okay, that's why they have a pollen tube. Pollen tube, this you can imagine as the marriage hall, and that consists of Archiconia. The female is inside now. Okay, the bride who is ready, she is waiting for the groom. Okay, so here this is the bride who is waiting, called as Archiconia. So now when the pollens are entering, they enter through the pollen tube and they enter on the surface of the Archiconia, and fertilization takes place to zygote. Okay, so this is how ovules are covering all these particular structures within them. Is it clear? So this is about fertilization in case of gymnosperms. I hope I have made it easier for you to understand in a micro of a story, so that you can remember this forever. Okay, just remember that, you have to remember all these words. Okay, so this is the last class. This is the class about gymnosperms. And if you have any doubts, you can ask me anytime, and I'll be sending you the notes of this. You can copy it down in your notes book. Thank you for watching this video.